But
okay, fine. We can stick to the.
So
no,
guys, I just want
to stick to the.
Yeah, let me just say something. So Tim, I want you to consider something here. Like Jonny is a vegan, and not only he's not only a vegan, he's also a vegan who went on to an extremely conservative YouTuber who was extremely anti-vegan and debated her in front of her 700,000 subs. Okay, so this is someone who's mostly on your side. Well, there's not. Come on, man, I need to be so dismissive. I'm trying to say this is somebody who's on your side, right?
Sorry.
I'm
in a weird mood today.
It's all right. It's all right. But so see, Jonny's on your side, right? My point here is that Jonny's on your side, but he's also still connected with what could be deemed as, like, I don't know, the normal people, the normies. He's not really into the activist side of things yet. I think you're on your way there, to be honest, mate, but not yet, right?
Yeah, I mean, so don't get me wrong. I've done activism,
I mean, like, hold up, pause for 1 second, right? So what I'm trying to say is, this is somebody that. I mean, your aim, Tim, as an Animal Rebellion's aim is not to have the people hate them, right? You don't want the public to hate you, but also your aim is not to please them, but your aim is not for people to despise you, is it? That's not an aim of Animal Rebellion, correct?
No, of course not.
Right.
No, of course not.
So
it's silly to hate. Hate is such a wasted emotion.
Fine, I agree, right? So my point is, before you continue, my point is that if you don't want that, so I'd like to see you try to explain it in a way that can be understood simply. Figure this out, because if you guys can't even get to the bottom of this without causing more commotion, then what the fuck, dude? Like, what the fucking chance does a non-vegan have to learn about this if we can't even get to the bottom of this with a vegan who disagrees? Do you see my point? So
I'd like to apologise. So I got a bit wound up. I didn't think I would actually.
Well, no, I understand. Look, he's called you cult members, non-vegan cult members, and says you have low IQ. So you know,
yeah. Likewise from my tweets, you know, like when you tweet, I'm normally when I'm tweeting, I'm flaming like that. I tend to do it from that emotion. I generally tweet when I'm angry, and that's my thing. But you know, like I said,
we are very similar. We are very, very similar, Jonny. Clearly, but we are very, very similar.
Not that I don't enjoy the aggro. I mean, I kind of did set this up as like UFC and stuff, but I would also like to see some productivity come from this, something good come from this too. So yeah, I think from here on out, like, I mean, still, you know, you can shoot some shots at each other if you want, but like, still, if you can like figure out. Like I said, there must be a way to figure this out amongst vegans. So what fucking chance does a non-vegan have of learning Animal Rebellion? You know what I mean? If we can't even do it.
I think I know the right question to ask to start getting to the bottom of this, right?
Go for it.
Because I think, like, my impression from what Tim's saying, and you know, I'm not trying to straw man you here, Tim. Like, I'm trying to steel man your position right now. Okay. So I think your position is like, it doesn't matter what the average, you know, normies and stuff kind of generally think. You're going and you're kind of attacking the system. You're going to hard, but you're saying,
I wouldn't use the word
whatever. You're disrupting. Let's say, right?
Disrupting. Brilliant word.
You're going in. You're pouring the products. It's getting the press, right? And it's doing something like
mobilizing people.
My point is, when I go forward with both, there's two potential things that could happen out of this, in my view. One is you are actually damaging economically the industry in some way, and I don't believe that you are, because realistically, all that's happening is that these supermarkets, etc., like I said, they're just going to write it off as a vandalism cost. They're going to get more product in, and people are going to buy just as much, right? If not, I would say, arguably on a long enough time frame, more animal products, because you are going to prevent more people from going vegan. The other thing, just let me go.
So you've got to prove that, man. You just made a point that you need to be able to prove if you're going to make claims.
But you just said before. You're saying I've got to prove that, but you said before, when I said, "Are you actually converting people to veganism?" and you said, "Well, that's not what we're trying to do." So you're not even claiming to be converting non-vegans, right?
No.
So why do I need to
just
prove
learn
it when
by
it's not even your
example?
claim?
They're going to learn by example, won't they? We lead by example, and they'll just learn by example by being with us.
But that's not what kind of example is that? Like, how is that an example?
It's morally
The
example is morally unacceptable to profit from the exploitation of someone else. That's it, man.
Yes, I agree. But you can articulate that point without
I've
causing.
I've tried
without
it.
going
I've
into
tried
a
it for.
supermarket.
I've tried it for ages, mate. Honestly, the education approach only gets us so far. Like I tried it. Honestly, I genuinely thought the world was going to change through education alone. Like I went from eating animal products 3 times a day. I went from like going to McDonald's, KFC, all of that all the time. Cow's milk in my cereal every single morning until I watched Cowspiracy. Cowspiracy was literally like Morpheus gave me the red pill in the Matrix, and it's like fucking hell, what the fuck is going on in the world? Not only am I going to stop, I'm going to get out there on the street and campaign. When I got out there on the street and did it for a year and a half, went to Speaker's Corner every Sunday where like debates happen every single time, every single Sunday. I went to Leicester Square, spoke to thousands of people, Brixton, all of this. People don't give a shit. There's a lot of people out there that just don't give a shit. People don't care. Some people are just apathetic, selfish narcissists. Like, and how are you going to educate those people? It's impossible. So I'm not trying to have an argument with you, and I get that you don't, I suppose, don't see the point of this action at this moment in time, or maybe you never will. But that's cool. Like we don't all have to agree upon the same things, and it's not going to be one thing that creates animal liberation. It's going to be an ecology of change, and we're just trying to tap into a space that's basically saying, no, like it's morally unacceptable to profit from this, And Harrod, like Selfridges, Waitrose, Marks and Spencer, it really was like shops that we didn't go to Lidl, we didn't go to Aldi, we didn't go to Tesco. I don't think.
But why does it matter? Why does it matter? Like, if according to you, the point is it's about the milk and animal product, why not go to those shops? Like,
because it's the one.
Saying it's okay
hold
for
on.
people to
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying the one. Hold on. Let me just answer the question. Let me answer this question. So it's the 1%. So it's the richest people on the planet are the ones that's causing the most amount of damage. Like 1% of the planet makes up. I don't know the figures off the top of my head, but it's like 20-30% or something of the carbon emissions, I think.
Yeah, maybe that's carbon emissions completely different to animal products. We're not talking.
Because our message is the dairy industry, animal agriculture, and fish. We have to transition to a plant-based food system. So our demand, Animal Rebellion's demand, is that we must end animal agriculture and fishing, transition to a plant-based food system, and the government must help farmers in that transition. And we'll stop with our acts of civil resistance once the government makes our demands. And we're not negotiating. This isn't a negotiation.
Okay, well, there's a few things wrong with that. First of all, is you take the average person in the UK who's on a 15 grand a year salary, and the average person in the UK who's on a 100 grand a year salary. There's going to be very little difference between the amount of meat those people eat, right? So your point about people using more. Wait, let me finish. Your point about people using more carbon. That is when you start including stuff like international travel, and you start including first world versus third world countries, etc. It's not to do with the amount of meat in the UK people are eating. People are going to Lidl eating just as much meat, dairy, and eggs as the people who are in any other supermarket, right? This is not a class thing. So if you're going to do it,
system change.
This is the thing. You're rolling in, like well, there you go. You're rolling in these kind of like socialist far left whatever ideas of like bringing down, people, the bringing down the billionaires or whatever. You're rolling this into something which has nothing to do with it, and that is, I think, at the core of this is that you're kind of like mushing together two ideas which don't deserve to be in the same place. There's vegan advocacy,
in your opinion,
and then there's the kind of anti-billionaire stuff. Well, you just said yourself you're only going to these places where supposedly really rich people.
Only rich people shop at Harrods, mate.
I'm not disagreeing. Okay, even if you accept it, it has nothing to do with vegan, with amount of things that vegans are eating versus non-vegan.
We're all about system change, mate, not individual change. So you're the one that's going on about veganism. I'm not the one talking about veganism. Again, I don't think we're the ones that need the word for basic manners, mate. Like we don't need a label to describe basic manners.
But then when you're talking about system change, right? But you're also saying, oh, well, it doesn't work. People can't, you can't win over people by argumentation, etc. How the hell is the government going to do this? Okay, well, how the hell is the government going to bring out all of this change? First of all, why is that going to happen off the back of throwing milk on the floor? I don't see how you made those two parallels.
Can I quickly answer that one?
Okay, yeah. Tell me.
So there's a study called by Erica Chenoweth. It's the history of non-violent civil resistance. She did studies of like hundreds of civil resistance movements, violent and non-violent, and found that the non-violent ones were like twice as likely to succeed because you're more likely to, in violent movements, it's only like a certain demographic that joins a violent movement, young males usually, but a non-violent movement is open to everyone. And she also concluded that once the movement reached 3.5% of the population, they won. They always won. I don't think we're going to need 3.5% of the population to create system change in the UK. I think we can get it done with way less than 3.5%. But that's so we don't.
How is that going to happen? How how is the government going to bring in all this stuff when you're going to need surely to vote in people?
No, we're not voting.
People are going to need to vote in.
We're not voting it.
Well, then how is it going to come?
By doing these acts.
You just said you wanted the government. You literally said you want the government to bring in this stuff. So how is that going to, like, what are you talking about?
By being in civil resistance against their genocidal regime. Wait,
so you think the government is going to see you guys throwing milk on the floor and say we need to ban milk, eggs, and dairy?
Once enough people do it, once enough. It's a numbers game. Once enough people do it.
That is so wild, man. You're completely lost here. That is just so.
One thing that Animal Rebellion did, like about a month or so ago, we went to like Arla and Muller, two companies that profit from exploitation and destruction, and we drilled tires. We drilled with drills. We drilled holes in the tires. We disabled.
So need to buy more tires.
So we disarmed trucks that are used in the exploitation industry and just completely shut their business down. There were aisles of milk in supermarkets that were completely empty of dairy because of our actions, of our civil resistance campaign, because of us taking action. Like you're not going to create empty aisles with a march. You're not going to create empty aisles with holding placards outside the store, going to the truck.
No, you're going to change hearts and minds with that. You're going to do the opposite. You don't change the hearts and minds of everyone, and the people that get wound up. No, you do it with the people who are close to you by sitting at the table with them and speaking to them about veganism.
That's one way. That's one way. That's not the only way. That's not the only way.
That is the way that this is the way this has happened. That's the way that veganism has grown so much. It's like grassroots. It's talking to your friends. It's talking to your family. Like that is just the way it happens. And going around.
It only gets us so far because I've done the education approach with loads of people, and loads of people are, I don't give a shit. I'm gonna fucking keep on eating animals.
You see but Tim, veganism has not been around very long as an idea, as a kind of philosophy.
It's been for ages. It's been around for ages.
It's not been here for
the concept of like not eating animals and causing the least amount of harm has been around for a while.
Yeah, you had some forms of vegetarianism, and you had some, tribes and small kind of religious groups that might have done it. But really, as a movement, as an understood philosophy, it's not that old. You're expecting for far quicker change than is actually going to happen. This is going to be something that is not even on the upwards ramp yet. We're still in the very early stages. I agree that we have had times before this where people have become vegan in greater numbers. There was at the time when I was becoming vegan, like there was kind of a bit of an upsurge. Now it's stalled a bit. There will be, when I was kind of going from not being vegan to being vegan. Yeah, I didn't go vegan overnight. Yeah,
maybe that's one of the. I don't know. Like I did. I could see the logic straight away. As soon as I was presented with slaughterhouse footage, I was like, bang, instantly knew it. And then as soon as I was presented with the information about civil resistance, so Blueprint for a Revolution is an amazing book. This is an Uprising is an amazing book. The History of Nonviolent Civil Resistance by Erica Chenoweth. I think that's what it's called. Another amazing book. I mean, there's so many great books that talk about how a tiny percentage of people change the world. It was
I'm not saying they don't. I'm not saying they don't. I'm just saying this doesn't.
Oh, 1 second, guys. So Tim, can I ask you a question? So if we were in a position right now where let's say like, I don't know, 35% of the population of England were not only vegan, but were actually like fully like animal rights, like 30%, 35%. Would you then be supportive of animal rebellions, of these actions, if we had like 35-40% of people were actually animal rights? So a more of a bigger minority? Would that make it more of an action?
Animal rebellion will stop with that.
1 second. Sorry, did I say Tim? I meant Jonny. Sorry, Jonny. I'm asking Jonny. Would you then be supportive of these kinds of actions if there was more? If they already had like a larger minority, let's say closer, even tipping on getting close to 50-50?
That's a good question. I still think no, these actions specifically, but would I advocate for some kind of civil disobedience that didn't involve using animal products, like what I would call
not using animal
civil
products.
disobedience?
You are. You're using
the
product. We're destroying it.
The product has been used. The use for you was throwing it on the floor, but it was used.
By destroying it, by stopping billionaires profiting from it, and from stopping customers from buying it.
Okay, so that's your use. So you used a product for the purpose of stopping billionaires buying, etc. So you use that.
It sounds like a great use.
So it's
That's the best way to use it.
So
That's the
non-vegan
best way
activism.
to use it.
I
That
would
is literally the best way to use it. There's no other better way of using it apart from that.
Yeah,
or
just
apart
not
from
using it
giving
at
it to the
all.
cow,
Not using
or
it at all.
leaving it on the shelf and letting people buy it. That's the better you think.
Yeah.
That's the better use.
That's the better use because at least they don't have to replenish the shelves. So yeah, it's literally a better use to leave it and let other people.
They'll replenish it when the people buy it. But anyway, so like
yes, I know. But now those people are still going to buy it, and
but they can't buy it that day though. If we go in there that day and pour every single, who cares?
Get it.
Oh mate, honestly, this. I don't think this conversation is going to be going anywhere. I've got to go in 25 minutes. All right, so.
Yeah, I mean, like, feel free if you want to steer this at all, David. But like, yeah, I'm not sure.
I'm just saying books. I think books would be good. I think books. So, Blueprint for a Revolution, I think would be a really good book for you to read. And I think this is an uprising.
I think, I don't think Jonny is misunderstanding civil disobedience. I think he's just. I don't think so because I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure it's not a difficult concept to understand. I think what he's disagreeing with is this specific form of the civil disobedience.
Yes, exactly. The analogy that Tim used before is he said people. I think he said it was black people going into white-only restaurants and sitting and not buying anything. Well, they didn't buy anything. The difference, a proper analogy would be if they went in there and then they end up eating the food and then they had to get more of it, right? That would be different.
The analogy was highlighting what a negative piece is and how they disrupted the negative piece. So the negative piece in my analogy or my comparison is that segregation happens. That's an evil, right? So that's the evil.
Yeah, I agree.
And all right, hold on.
Yeah.
And they disrupted that negative piece by sitting in the counter. That's how they disrupted it. So that's right. Cool. And then like our example is the dairy industry is evil, right? That's evil. That's the evil. And we're disrupting that negative piece by saying we're not going to allow you to profit from this product, and we're going to pour it out on the shop, and we're going to keep on doing this over and over and over and over and over again until the government helps farmers transition to a plant-based food system.
Okay. So once again, you've mentioned there you're not going to be allowed to profit from this product. The point of vegan activism isn't. We're
not doing vegan activism.
The point is you don't. Okay. Let me finish. The point is, if you're using more of the product, even if they're not making a profit on the ones you've thrown, even if they go and write off an insurance claim and they get more of it in,
I understand this. I get it. I understand this.
But this is the thing. You're talking about profit, okay? If you want to talk about profit and you want to fight profit, go and do socialist activism. Don't call it vegan activism.
We're not calling it vegan activism. We're not calling it vegan
masquerading socialist activism as vegan activism. And
we're not calling it. No, you're fucking mate. Honestly, we are not calling it vegan.
So just semantics, Tim.
Okay, so you accept it's not. So you accept it's not.
Johnny, they call it animal rebellion. They're saying it's like animal rights activism or even environmental activism, but they have this thing in Animal Rebellion where they refuse to call themselves vegan. They refuse to say the word vegan. They've got a big thing about like vegan in Animal Rebellion. So if you're going to say what kind of activism they're doing, just say animal rights activism, and Tim won't get upset about the semantics.
But that's the thing. But it's not that, because you're causing more cows to be milked by your actions. So it's neither of those things. Whatever you want to call it, all you've done is you've increased the number of cows that had to be milked. So there's nothing, whether you call it vegan or animal activism, it's not any of that.
So they're magically producing cows because of us pouring out.
What do you mean? That's called cows being born. That's how. That's
meeting
the
demand.
They breed them.
They're meeting.
They breed. There's not like a finite number of cows in the world, and they can't breed more.
And they meet the current demand. Like we're not.
So now you've increased the demand. So now they breed more and put them into that
demand. We're pouring out the floor. We're pouring out a product. We're stealing the product. We're not increasing the demand of the product.
Of course you have, because you haven't decreased the number of people who want to buy it. So all you do is you've used the product for your purposes, which is pouring it on the floor. They write off as insurance.
This isn't going to go anywhere, man. Honestly, like
because you're not actually reconciling the where your actions actually lead.
No, mate, I completely understand.
We're doing this thing and we're beating it. We're destroying the system and we're doing this and that, and then you just assume that it's having this effect, but it's actually not at all. Like
I'm not assuming. I know the movement is growing. Literally, like we're going to be back in spring with absolutely way more numbers. Than
it doesn't. Okay, well, I really hope it doesn't, because you're using more animal products. So your movement growing is
No.
damaging to animals because
you-
you're
no, it's
having to
not.
cause more cows having to be milked because you're throwing all this stuff on the floor.
So you approve that.
If
Give
anything,
us your stats,
even
mate. Give us your stats for that. Please share your stats.
okay, I'll give you my stats. You throw away, I don't know. Okay, like find the number of how many cows have to be milked.
No, I
to
want the
make a
stats. I
carton
want
or
your
whatever.
peer-reviewed
And when you
science.
throw it on the ground, you just work that out and you say, okay, like I've thrown 10
Give me your
cartons of milk or 20
peer-reviewed
cartons of milk.
science.
Can I just intervene 1 second, guys?
Dude, this is just obvious. This is just obvious.
Yeah,
The milk is
hold
coming
up.
from somewhere. You're pouring it on the ground. They're having to milk more cows. It's not vegan. It's not vegan. It's not even animal activism. It's just It's all you're doing is you're destroying property. It's far left
We're
socialist
disrupting a
activism
morally
that you're
Guys,
masquerading as
let me
vegan
intervene.
activism.
So 1 second. So one thing I want to just get sorted here, Tim. You keep asking throughout from the beginning for evidence for backing up of his claims, but then of course you've said a lot of things, and Johnny's not asked you to back them up with data either. Because at the end of the day, you're sharing opinions. So I don't feel that that's useful for either of you to ask each other to bring up papers for opinions.
He's saying, like,
No, I wholeheartedly disagree.
Right, but you're saying
like,
it.
this isn't doing anything.
Sure.
else.
No, but
Like,
I'm not-
Hold on,
I'm not
sorry,
saying it's not
guys,
growing.
1 second. Tim, you're saying it is though, and you have no peer-reviewed data to show that your movement is working. So there's no point asking each other for data.
No.
Yeah?
I'm saying it's getting bigger. I'm saying
Sure.
also there's peer-reviewed data that shows that once a movement reaches a certain percentage of the
understand.
population, it wins.
I agree with that. Yeah,
I understand.
I'm not disagreeing with that.
I understand.
We agree on that, and the
And the
3.5%
movement is
number
growing.
is
The movement is growing.
does seem
all
to
the
be the
time
tip.
because
Yes, but
of
you're
the
saying the
milk
movement is
pouring.
growing, but if the
Our
movement is
movement,
overall
not-
destructive
yeah.
because it's using more animal products, then that's not a good sign. Just saying the movement is growing means nothing when you're
I'm
using
saying
more animal products than if you would
rebellion.
just
I'm
stay at
saying
home and do
animal
nothing.
I'm saying animal rebellion is growing, and once animal rebellion
I know
reaches,
you are. I know that's what you're
enough
saying.
numbers of the population, we will get the government to do what we tell them to do. Which
I
is their
don't want to
job.
see a movement grow that is increasing the number of animal products being used.
It's
Right,
not.
so,
like,
guys,
It's not
Johnny,
increasing the
I've
demand.
got a question for
so
Johnny.
what are you throwing on the
I've
floor
got a
if not
question for
milk? Like, I
Johnny.
don't understand how you can say it's not.
Guys, we're going
it's not
round.
increasing the number. Like,
We're going round here. So that point Tim doesn't care about basically. That Johnny, just to be clear here, that the point of that it's being replaced on the shelves, Tim doesn't care because in his eyes it doesn't matter because it would be bought anyway. So at least Tim's point is, if someone would buy it and drink it, or they throw it on the floor. Well, it's better if they throw it on the floor.
That's
what he's
wrong.
saying.
That's wrong. If
That's a
someone
false
throwing it
dichotomy.
on the floor doesn't mean that someone else goes, oh, okay, like I'm not going to drink it. No, it doesn't.
my
They
God.
just
We're
they,
not
they just
asking
buy
people
they
to
just
do
buy it
that.
another day.
No, Tim, he's not saying
doesn't
that. He's not
decrease-
saying
it doesn't
that.
decrease the demand.
So so you're saying. So Tim is saying.
Well, what's he saying
So
then?
Tim is.
What's he
I
saying?
understand.
What
I
is the
understand.
use in it?
Tim is
Please, can
saying.
we get to that
Tim's
point?
saying regardless of what they do with the milk, it's going to get used or whatever. Someone's going to buy it, or the supermarket will throw it away. So they're saying we're using it. We're going to do it for our cause. But you're arguing.
The animals' cause, all of our
Exactly.
causes. It's the planet
Right,
Earth's
Tim,
cause.
it's clear, man. And Johnny, you're saying that increases demand, and Tim's saying it doesn't matter because what matters is the system change that we'll achieve if we do
can we
this.
get to what that is? What is the system change? Because this is the thing. Because the only thing that you've pointed out as being this system change is the movement is growing, but you even accept that you might be that it doesn't matter to you that you're using more animal products. So what is the system change? Like, can we get to the root of that? Because I
So
just
the
do not
system
see where
changes
it is.
so the system changes getting the government to do their job and meet our demands and end.
But you just said before you don't want the government to do this. When I said that you wanted the government to do
do.
stuff, you were like,
Yeah,
"Oh, I don't
I
want the
did.
government to do it."
I didn't. I'm pretty sure I didn't say that, or if like I did.
Well, you said
like,
you didn't
that
want
was
to
just
vote.
lost in
David.
You didn't want to vote.
That was lost in
that's what he
communication. All right, that was lost
Okay,
in
you don't.
communication.
Okay,
then.
fine.
Right,
You didn't
mate,
want- you
calm
didn't want
down.
a
Just
vote.
calm down and let me answer. the
I'm
question.
completely calm.
You keep on interrupting me.
said. Guys, so you said, Tim, you said you didn't want to vote, right? You said we don't want to vote somebody in or whoever's going to do this. We just want them to
So
do
you want a
it.
dictator.
Right.
No.
You don't want
No.
so you want the
Straw
government
man.
to do it, but you don't want a vote, so you want a dictator. Well, give me the third option. What is the third option? If you don't want
So,
people, you don't want to
civil,
vote,
Yeah.
but you want the government to do something, isn't that a dictatorship?
Citizens assemblies. Have you heard of citizens assemblies?
No, but go on.
All right, so they were used in Ireland recently about abortion. And so basically, how citizens' assemblies work, it's basically like the way the members of the citizens' assembly are selected. It's like a jury service, like randomly selected from about 100 people or 1,000. I don't know actually. Say 100 people from the population, all demographics. Like try to make sure all the demographics, was all included. And those 100 people sit and listen to people who are who we believe to be the smartest minds on this current subject. So we'll have like for the one that happened in Ireland on abortion, talking about how You know, people talking about philosophy. I imagine, I didn't sit on the thing, but anyway, you have experts explaining like the pros for abortion and maybe the cons for abortion. And at the end of it, those 100 people that are selected go away and vote by themselves, and what they vote on was now a legally binding contract that is implemented by the government. So that once that citizens' assembly happened in Ireland, they decided that abortion should be allowed, continued, because once people understand the rationality and logic, they usually come to the right conclusion. So our demand to the government is that they must transition to a plant-based food system. If they need to use citizens' assemblies to get us there, basically, yeah, again, 100 random people selected, experts on anthropogenic climate change, experts on like ethics and like exploiting others, experts in all these sort of things were explained to these 100 people.
But 100 people have become vote.
Yeah,
100 randomly selected people.
Yeah.
So there you go. You've already lost then, haven't you? Because we already accept that veganism is less than the 3.5% shelling point. So why would these 100 people suddenly go, oh yeah, we're going to be
no. Right, 1 second then. No. So we'd get to the citizens' assemblies by creating the 3.5% of the movement. Once the movement's got large enough where our demands get met, I'm saying we're not. You say I want to live in a dictatorship. No, I'm quite happy to localized democracy, flat pack democracy, basically. I'm not looking for like a new world order or something. Like, I'm looking for localized organizing. But like citizens' assemblies are just one way of coming to a decision instead of having corrupt politicians make those decisions for us. So in the UK, whoever Rupert Murdoch has backed to be prime minister has been prime minister. Our political system is rotten and corrupt to the core. So the politicians currently in charge are going to make decisions that aren't in the best interest of anyone whatsoever. So that's why we need to be in civil resistance against this genocidal, corrupt, sociopathic, narcissistic system that focuses just on individuality.
Can we pause for 1 second?
Okay,
I'll ask Jonny a question. So Jonny, like historically, is there any civil disobedience, like civil disruption that you know of, like, you know, throughout the various movements that you agree with? Like, for example,
yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay with civil disobedience. Okay. Like I am. You know, I think that you know, as long as it's not using more animal products, right? Then I would consider it to be just civil disobedience of some sort. Like, you know, I like, you know, even people who are doing stuff. I guess I have some sympathy for people who are kind of like, you know, going into slaughterhouses and kind of like releasing animals and stuff. I still think overall, I still question it, but at least there's a debate to be had there, because it's certainly not using, you know,
how about blowing up? How about blowing up a slaughterhouse? Would you be pro or against blowing up a slaughterhouse? If no one got harmed, no sentient beings got harmed in the process, would you be pro or against blowing up a slaughterhouse?
Oh, yeah, if the animals didn't get harmed and stuff. Yeah, I think... No, I think that I would be overall against it, because I think that what would inevitably happen is that you haven't reduced the demand at all.
Finish, mate.
All right, sorry.
Well, you haven't. How have you reduced the demand by doing that?
Well, we stopped the murder house where animals get killed. And
if we
blow up every single slaughterhouse, that would stop billions of animals being killed, wouldn't it? If we blew up every single slaughterhouse.
No, you'd have to stop new slaughterhouses being built perpetually.
Yeah, we can do that then.
This is why
blow them all up.
Everything that I do
Just
with
keep on blowing them up.
Tim, everything that I do on my side of the advocacy is like trying to actually encourage people like to go vegan on the demand side.
I get it.
Right? That's what I'm trying to do. But I think that you seem to have given up on that. But you seem to have given up on that endeavor, and now you're at the point where it's like it's not going to work. So now we need to resort to violence and force and property damage.
You can't be violent against inanimate objects, mate. You can't be violent against inanimate objects, non-sentient objects.
Okay, but it's still causing. Yeah, okay, that's fair enough. Maybe violence is the wrong word, but like certainly property damage and stuff. But even then, at some point, saying, okay, well, even though we haven't won the hearts and minds, we're going to need some kind of like, governmental entity or whatever you call them, like a local council thing to like force people to stop. I don't think that any of this is the answer. The answer is like proper like vegan education, and ideally one-to-one, talking to your friends, talking to your family, that kind of stuff. That's where all of my efforts go. And the other thing, just the last thing I'm going to say on this, because I know you're going to get off soon, Tim. Like, at the end of the day, every form of advocacy that we do, it's a zero-sum game. There are other forms of advocacy you can be doing. So this entire conversation, right? Like we're talking about this one specific thing, but it's not like I'm saying, okay, just go home and do nothing. I actually think in the case of the kind of stuff that you're doing, that would actually be more beneficial because at least you're not using more animal products in the process and causing kind of a disreputable image for the vegan community. However, you could be out there doing, Anonymous for the Voiceless or any of these other forms of advocacy, talking to your friends, talking to your family, doing your own online stuff, whatever it is. Personally, I'm all for doing that. I think that's where our efforts should be. So, when it comes to all this stuff, property damage, blowing up slaughterhouses and stuff, I just think that's where none of the focus should be there for me. The focus should all be on the individuals and trying to win over hearts and minds, because none of this is sustainable if we can't win over the individual with the ideas and philosophy of veganism.
Fair enough. All right. Okay. Yeah. So I think we should just wrap this up for me anyway. I'm going to try and be as kind as possible with my words, I suppose. And I completely do understand where you're coming from, man. Like, I genuinely used to think like the world was going to change for education. And I think maybe once you've been doing it for a while and realize how apathetic and selfish and narcissistic people are, you might have a different perspective. You might not. You might continue to still think this is the only way of doing it. But like I said earlier, it's an ecology of change or a variety of tactics which is going to bring about change. And I'd say, yeah, there's another book I'd highly recommend as well. Like, I'm not trying to be condescending as well. I know I'll probably come across as like an arrogant, condescending wanker at times, but like honestly, like I'm coming from a place of love and care, and I really genuinely just want to see the world a better place. Like, our planet is boiling out of control. There's parts of it that's uninhabitable at this moment in time, and those parts are only becoming bigger. Like, we've got to create change. We've got to create change instantly. Education has only got us so far. Education's been happening for like 40, 50, 60 years, definitely from the 60s when Donald Watson coined the term veganism, and the amount of animals exploited and killed every single year only increases. It's only going up. So if we've been doing the education approach for 60 years and the amount of animals that are being killed every single year only going up, maybe, like, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So there's one other book I'd recommend, and it's called How to Blow Up a Pipeline. How to Blow Up a Pipeline. And it's by like a really, really smart philosophical guy. It's the Swedish guy that's done the history of civil resistance and knows all his shit about that. There's another one by Roger Hallam actually that's really, really good. Like, it's about 60 pages and he like condenses like quite a lot of this stuff, like a really short thing. But like maybe I would say maybe I can just recommend. I'm genuinely not trying to sound like I'm condescending with this. I'll recommend a book. You read a couple of those books and then we'll have a chat maybe a month's time and see what, if you have the same perspective or something.
So guys, I'll just chime in here and just kind of summarize. I suppose we're in the last kind of like 10 minutes anyway. But look, what I'm getting from this, from like top down, looking at this top down, is that Tim, you from our discussion as well are fully sold and fully in on the direct action, civil disobedience. All in. Fully all into it, right? You read all the literature, you're fully in, and from our discussion, I'm going to go on the flip side. I'm fully behind direct action and this kind of protest as well. The milk stuff, I also wasn't too keen on, to be honest with you. I think you guys have done better stuff, and that's something we've completely avoided here, and I don't know why we didn't discuss it, but I'm sure the stuff that you guys have done that Jonny would be fully agreeing with. It's just this one specific one that he's not agreed with, and to be honest with you, I was a little bit 50-50 on it too. But this is not like you don't like one thing, so the animal rebellion shit. Obviously in Jonny's case he did call you a couple of things, but that's for that specific protest. It wasn't like the whole org is terrible or something, right? So anyway, but in our discussion,
to be honest, I didn't know that Animal Rebellion did other stuff. Okay. So I will definitely look into that.
Yeah, sure, you should, man. They've done some really good stuff. And so
like milk pouring.
So Tim, we have to be fair though, Tim, in that in our podcast, in our discussion, I did bring up a few points that we neither of us really had answers to. Like, for example, that our knowledge of civil disobedience is based on human rights, not animal rights. So although we can take inspiration and we can try to apply it, we don't fucking know what's going to happen. We don't know if it's going to work. That's all we have, right? That's all we have.
Agreed.
Right. There is some sense to what Jonny's saying. There is a place to debate this. There is a place to critique it. Where Jonny's coming from, in my opinion, Jonny, I'm going to try and summarize you as well. Where I feel you're coming from here is that you don't want to. How you see it is the world isn't ready for this yet, and for this kind of, like, for example, we're talking about blowing up slaughterhouses, talking about taking animals out of these places, talking about pouring milk on the floor. Where you're coming from is these things cause more separation and more division between the people who want animal rights and the people who don't. So although these things are good in the short term potentially, like taking animals out of places is obviously good for the animal, blowing up a slaughterhouse is good as well. In the long run, they're going to cause more problems than they fix currently. This is your perspective. You're thinking before we need to have a lot more people on board ethically before we can start to take these power plays. And I'm totally, if that's what you think, I get that. I've made this exact same point with Annie and I. We discussed this. I worry sometimes that we making power plays and we're just not big enough to make these power plays yet. Like Animal Rebellion does these huge, powerful protests, and it's like you're like, yeah, but then you're also like, wait a minute, are we biting off more than we can chew right now? Do you know what I mean? Because if the minority is doing a power play, the majority is going to go fuck you, just as much power as we make the power play, and there's more of them. So I understand the if that's where you're coming from, Jonny, I understand that as well. So I get both of you basically. Have I summarized this correctly, Jonny, from your side, like your worries?
Yeah, I think so. You know, like at the end of the day, I just think, you know, I don't want to kind of necessarily go into one long closing statement as well, but just to piggyback off your point, like I think that essentially the way that I see vegan, you know, we have had times when it's been growing more than it is right now. I kind of accept that there's been a stalling and stuff, and I feel like Tim has given up on the idea that we can win this through advocacy, or maybe it's not that he has given up on that, but maybe it's that Tim thinks that we don't have the time, right? That the climate and stuff is in such an emergency. We don't have time to kind of continue along this thing because the trajectory isn't good enough. Like I personally disagree with that point. I think that ultimately, like the movement has gone through previous stages of growth more than right now. I think it will continue to grow, but as with all things, you know, there's something called a hype cycle, and the way it looks on a chart is it kind of, I'll try and do this the opposite way because of where the camera is, but it kind of goes up like this, and it goes up, and then it drops back down, but it drops back down to a point like higher than the last point, right? So it's like if you imagine veganism going like this, it drops back down, has a stall, goes up, drops back down, but each time it drops, there's going to be a larger contingent of people. And I think that because the philosophy is so sound, I have complete faith in the philosophy. I think that more people will come into it over time. I just think that we don't want to give up on changing hearts and minds and go into these forms of advocacy which are counterproductive in my view.
Yeah, okay. So I want to say, like, before I forget that one, like, we are coming from a completely love-based approach. Like, we do use non-violence and we echo our non-violence, and we do like these acts like with compassion for others.
Apart
like,
from when you want to blow up slaughterhouses.
Well, I think that's like compassionate to the animals that are going to go in. Yeah.
I'm just to someone that came onto the stream and heard that, they probably didn't think you sounded very peaceful or compassionate.
Well, that's because they're looking at it from a completely different lens. Maybe they're looking at it from the blue pill lens. I'm looking at it from the red pill lens.
And we're joking, by the way, just to be clear for any YouTube people, or you know, it's a joke.
Blow up a slaughterhouse.
Stop saying that.
Listen,
stop saying that over and over again. You're gonna fucking screw my channel. It's a joke. He's joking. All right, continue.
I'm not joking. So we are doing it with love and compassion in our hearts. Like, honestly, like we really are. And I haven't lost faith in like humanity. And I do think at the root of everyone's is like people do have peace and want to live in a harmonious sort of civilization. But like this system that we live in is so toxic and corruptive that it's just fucking brainwashed people into not caring. Like Margaret Thatcher has laid the foundations of individualism, and that's from going on in the 70s in this country. And we can only protest in the country. I can only focus on the country that I live in, so I can only really focus on like how it's working in this country. Sorry, like and oh fuck off with the messages. Sorry. And. Oh, I've lost my train of thought. So we're doing it with non-violence, but you said you disagree that this isn't as pressing an issue as it is, and that basically means you're going to have to disagree with the brightest minds studying anthropogenic climate change, because they're saying a different sort of side of the story. They're saying we're running out of time to make drastic changes of the way we're living, and I'm not saying like ending dairy is going to eradicate all the world problems. I fully understand there's so many fucking stuff that's going on, but dairy's part of it, and animal agriculture and fishing is part of it, and the brightest minds studying anthropogenic climate change saying we have to transition to a plant-based food system, basically, as one of the ways of like, and we've got, it's not like we're like having, you know, I've heard people say we're like toddlers having little toddler tantrums. And it's like, no, we've got a solution. It's not like we're just coming here randomly, like with like no idea about what we're doing or why we're doing it. We're saying, this product is destroying our planet. This product is exploiting others, not on my watch. And we've got a solution, which is like transition, get farmers that are milking cows for a living, help them to transition to whatever it is that doesn't exploit others. Like, hopefully that sums it up. I've got like 2 minutes until I've really got to go. And I think hopefully we could just have another discussion. Maybe we can, it doesn't have to be online. Like we could do this chat whenever you like. I'm happy to remain in contact with you. And I'm genuinely sorry if I've been a dick, like, because I got really worked up.
I don't think so, man. I think we were, you know, fairly even on this. You know, we both slung some shots. It's all good, man.
Cool. Because Jonny, honestly, like, no, thank you. Like, genuinely, like, I tried to say this shit, and I just, or in my head, it just sounds like I'm being condescending. I'm genuinely not. This is I genuinely mean it. Like, thank you for what you're doing. Actually, I do remember you now. Like, I saw that video that you did, and you were great with that whoever you, I can't remember that right wing, whatever, you know, that you work for.
Lauren.
Yeah. That's, you know, loads. I do. Like, you're reaching loads of people, and you'll reach, and you will hopefully influence loads of people. Like David is. David's reaching loads of people, influencing loads of people, and it's the psychology of change. We're basically saying, like, not everyone is going to get round with the hearts and minds like approach, and so therefore, like, the way to change the whole system individually is to get every single individual to change. If every single individual is not willing to change, it's like really apathetic and selfish and narcissistic. It's like, yes, well, totally maybe we need the system change approach as well. So maybe I think that there's room for both of them. I'm not saying it's one or the other. I'm saying, like, let's do both. And with Animal Rebellion, we try to do both. We try to still do educational outreach and like talk about why we do what we're doing. Sometimes it doesn't get put across in the mainstream media because it's run by billionaire oligarchs who, like, you know, the 60% of the press in the UK is run by 4 billionaires. It's like a completely corrupt media system. So it's no wonder that they completely always like say we're fucking like far left extremists and paint us as vegan eco zealots or whatever, because that's like the narrative they speak. They profit from the system. I've rambled for a lot, so I'm going to let you get to say something, and then I probably have to go.
Yeah, no, like that's fine. And, you know, like I said to you, you know, I don't, well, before this conversation, honestly, I did doubt your intentions. I genuinely was concerned that this group was not a legitimate group. But after speaking to you, you know, I think that you do have your intentions are good. I just think that your actions, in my view, and this is where we're obviously disagreeing, is that the actions aren't in alignment with that, or aren't going to bring about those outcomes. But, you know, on a personal level, man, like, you obviously care a lot about animals. You know, you care enough to go and put yourself in front of all these people who, most people, they're gonna see you in the shop or whatever. Most people are gonna be like, oh, fuck these guys, right? And you're willing to go through that. You're willing to kind of like essentially say, I don't care like how I'm viewed, because I care about animals so much that I don't give a fuck. Like, I'm a conduit for this movement. I get that. It's purely the actions and whether they're having the right outcomes that we disagree on. But I have no problem with you personally. And if you want to debate again in the future, we can do that.
Well, I don't like the word debate, I suppose, like, because that almost like sounds, fight.
Yeah, or have a conversation.
Fight to the death. Fight to the death. That's the only way to do things, isn't it?
Yeah.
Cage fight.
In a slaughterhouse, and the winner has to blow up the slaughterhouse with the dead person in there.
Stop with the blowing up slaughterhouses, man. Jesus Christ. YouTube's going to shut this down big time.
I'll give you some money, David. Tell me how much you lost, I'll just give the money to you.
Right.
I'll get Animal Rebellion to give it to you.
All right, cool. Do you have to shoot off then, mate? What's your...
I kind of do,
right.
yeah. I said I've already arranged with some people to go out.
Yeah. Do you want to tell
Jonny,
everyone what you're up to then?
Karaoke.
There you go.
I'm going to sing Blink 182. I'm going to sing Blink 182 first. Is it First Date? First Date.
You want to do a little pre-run now?
No, I can't. No, I can't. I have to have the music behind me.
Hey, mate, take your phone.
Hey, that's my go-to as well. Blink 182.
Take your phone. Yeah, take your phone, and then join the Google Meet again, and then we can stream it. We can actually we'll do that. You can perform. Actually, no, we can't copyright.
It'll be 2 hours. It's going to be at least 2 or 3 hours. It goes on to 1 a.m. This thing.
Okay.
It goes on to 1 a.m. Maybe I'll record it and then I'll send it to you.
Sounds good.
Maybe you can do a little.
Yeah. Right. The next discussion we have, we can play that as the intro.
Jonny, honestly, it has like I feel like there has been productivity in it. Like, I'll try and get that, like those books that I do recommend, because I think, like, you know, I change like education and everything like that. And again, that really does sound patronizing. I'm not trying to be
no.
Don't worry.
The danger with this though is that I think that you can get really into the philosophy of something and you can miss the reality in front of you of what people are actually thinking and seeing and how they're responding. I think that there is such a thing as reading too much about the philosophy and you get lost in that and you don't realize that the world around you is actually different. And it's not.
You've got we've got to adapt. So we adapt. So, like, you know, like everything that I'm reading, I'm not saying like we're going to use that like it's a complete guide, a complete like how to. It's just like the starting blocks of like setting an idea in someone's mind, and then you have to adapt it to the country that you live in, I suppose. So yeah, like again, like I'm willing to put my hands up in down the line and say, yeah, we fucked up. You were right, but like at this moment in time, like none of us can say one way or the other. Like if what we're doing is a negative or a positive, or if it's like completely neutral, I suppose. Like only through time. Yeah. Would you agree with that?
All I would say is that I hope that you are actually putting a measuring stick to that and identifying how many people who are currently eating, drinking milk, eating animal products, etc., are moving over. Not just people who are within the vegan community who are kind of coming around to that form of, let's call it activism. Like, I don't think that should be the measuring stick, right? Like, I think the measuring stick should be how many non-vegan people. I know you don't like using those terms, but how many non-vegan people are coming around to it? I just hope that you're looking at those numbers and trying to ascertain, not just seeing how many more people are going and joining in the protests, but how many non-vegan people are actually changing their behavior as a result. I think that's an important thing for you to look at.
Yeah. No, I have. But yeah, like I suppose we're just having almost like two different conversations at times. Like, because I'm focusing on system change and you're focusing on individual change, and it's like these like we're just clashing.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
You can shoot off, mate, and I'll get into this with Jonny now actually about the more about that stuff. So get it.
Appreciate it anyway, Tim. Like
no, definitely, yeah. Let's have another chat. Like, are you based in London at all? Like, are you in the UK or?
No, I'm in Mexico.
Oh, fair enough. That's a bit of a way for me. I don't think I could get there. It would take me a while in my canoe to get there, I think. But yeah, if you're ever in London, do hook me up, because I don't think I'll ever be in Mexico. It's unlikely. I don't think I'll ever be.
Okay, cool. Again, all right. Well, yeah. If that happens, then for sure we'll go get some vegan
food. But we'll definitely. I think it'd be cool to have a chat, maybe in a couple months time. And check in and just have another round.
Tim, piss off.
Yeah. All right,
get out of here, mate.
All right, anyway,
Christ, this is the longest goodbye I've ever seen.
Bye.
See you later, mate.
Thanks for having me, mate.
See you in a bit, mate.
Later. Blow up a slaughterhouse.
Mate, unreal.
To be honest, I did kind of bait him back in again a couple of times there, so it was partly my fault.
All right, let me just sort this screen out, because when he jumped out, it like restart. Oh my God, you're massive now. Hold up. There we go.
Oh, am I?
Yeah, I made you huge by accident. Cool. Actually, how am I going to do that? I'll just fuck it. This is all right. I'll figure this out later. Right. Here we go. And we're back in. Oh, no. Oh, God. Right. Cool. How'd you find that?
Yeah, fine. It's kind of as I expected, really.
Sure.
We have very different opinions and ideas, but I also think we're coming from a different. We're coming at it from a different place spiritually. Like not to try and sound too like woo woo and shit, but like I do think that we have a different ultimate like outlook on the world, and I think that's kind of where we're clashing and stuff.
Right.
But like you said, he's. Yeah, I don't want to like necessarily kind of go too much into it here when he doesn't have the opportunity to kind of respond. But yeah, like what does it like directly or indirectly lead to? And like I said, I think that it spoke for itself in the debate that I just couldn't get to a point at which those actions, there was a lot of stuff about well, it's going to bring about systemic changes, but there was no point where I saw that bridge. It's like you've got to have the bridge if you're going to claim that it's doing that. You've got to point out how that is achieving that. And obviously he went into all the stuff about the kind of the way that he wants to redesign democracy and everything with this localized democracy, but it's like what again, like how is this going to bring about that system?
Yeah.
And this is, I guess, a bit similar, just moving away from our debate a bit in terms of like the one that Ronnie Lee had, the recent one when he had with
George. Yeah.
what was the carnism debunked? Yeah, George. Right, like in that debate, there was a lot, like there was this kind of hurdle which was assumed that it was just going to be overcome, which was, well, we need to completely redesign the nature of the relationship between people and government, and we're gonna, like, everyone's gonna change the way they vote, and like it's kind of like, I just think you've got to start where you are now with the systems that you're in now.
Right.
And we always have that option to have individual change. Like we always have the option to go to someone and make individual change. But kind of if a prerequisite for your form of activism or advocacy or whatever, if a prerequisite for that is like having an entire system level change that we've never seen before, then I'm like, what's the point in having that discussion? Like we need to just start from where we are. That's always my point. I think we have to bring it down to basics.
So before I get into this a little bit further with you, I'm just going to read out some of these Streamlabs tip comments. So first off, I got one from DJ Lionel. Thank you so much. Tipped $9.86, which I'm going to guess is €10. Thank you so much. What about if it was out of date milk from a waste container or milk from the food bank, unsold milk? Maybe that was an option. I think, I mean, that would be probably better if you're going to do any kind of milk spilling. I think that would be a good way of doing it. Do you agree?
Well, I mean, the thing is, like, then what point are you making? I mean, the whole point of the whole point, to try to put myself in Tim's shoes here.
Well, in this case,
is to have that attention.
In this
right?
case, it would just be for the disruptive properties of it. So, for example, just going into a shop with any white-colored liquid and spilling it on the floor is going to get the media looking, and like
yes. Well, that's the thing, I mean, there'd be a debate to be had there. I think if you went in with something like milk that had been got out of the waste bins outside and threw that on the floor, at least you wouldn't be increasing the necessity for like more cows to be milked in that situation, right? I still think that that's not a very good form of advocacy, because when you're pissing people off and you're making yourself, seem really annoying to the average person who just, they don't understand veganism. They just see that and they're like, okay, vegans are crazy. So I think that you're still not helping to bring about a vegan world by doing that, but at least you're not, I would at least accept in that situation that you're not increasing the necessity to milk more cows.
Okay, and then the other one before we get into this a bit further, what about B12 tipped and says, thank you so much, tipped €4, I guess, $3.66. I don't know why it's putting it up in dollars, but it says, can you make a video about this later and confirm whether or not pouring milk in stores causes demand of more animals to be milked? I can try and look into it. I don't know where exactly I would look, but yeah, sure, I can try and look into it a bit. But I'd really, maybe you guys can help me with this, because you know just as much as me.
Here's the calculation I would do if I was trying to actually work out if this worked, right? I would say, okay, we're pouring milk on the floor. You say, okay, the average cow is going to produce in a given week or whatever X amount of milk, right? And then you say, we poured this amount, so we're gonna have to milk. We've poured the amount of milk from, let's say, 5 cows, right, in that given week to do this. And then you would take the amount that an average individual is going to drink milk in, let's say, the exact same amount of time. So let's call it a week. And you would say how much cow, maybe that uses, like half a carton of milk or whatever in a week, like, let's just say. So then you would say, okay, how many non-vegans would I have to convert into being vegan to now have a net reduction in the amount of milk that has been used, either by drinking or by throwing it on the floor? That is a calculation you could actually do, but I don't seem to. But as we've discussed, I think Tim, I don't think that I'm kind of like doing a disservice to Tim's argument by saying this. He's not interested in doing the calculation because he just wants the systemic change. Yeah. Although that's relatively undefined, I think, in this conversation. Or totally undefined in my view.
Yeah. So basically, to get into this, what I said I would get into with you was how the Animal Rebellion, the movement itself, the organization, they're not interested in making people vegan. Like, this is not what they're trying to do at all. So they consider themselves like it's like political activism. They're a system. They want the entire system to be upheaved and completely changed. So they're not interested in like making somebody stop buying animal products. They're interested in getting government to make big changes at the top through the things that he said, for example, through the whatever I can't remember what he called it, like the community-based like decision making, not by voting or whatever. So this is what they focus on. So this is why you clashed a few times there, where because you were talking about converting people to go vegan or to get better ethics and stop eating animals. You know, you can call it veganism, you can call it just being fucking ethical, whatever, right? But on his side, it's like that's just not what they're doing. So when you were saying this is going to stop people from changing and going vegan, he was like, we don't care about that, because ultimately they will have to. This is where they're coming from. They're coming from a point where like it will be so inconvenient for people to get animal products. It'll be so hard, potentially even illegal, that you know, people just won't be able to get them. That's animal rebellion goal. That's their goal. They don't want to change people's hearts and minds.
Yeah, but this is why I made the dictatorship point, right? Like I wasn't being facetious when I said that, you know, because essentially if you're saying, okay, like I'm not winning people over, my intention, I've completely given up even trying to win people over because I've done all this forms of advocacy, it won't work. So now we need the government to step in. And then when I said, okay, well, how are you going to do that? Because you're going to expect people to vote, and then you're going to need more than 50% of people. And then he had to say, okay, well, no, I accept now that democracy is not going to work. So again, we kind of keep having to jump from point to point because it's so out there. It's so kind of like not connected with our current reality that we have to take like all of these leaps of completely redesigning democracy and stuff. And then by the time we've got there, I'm like, well, what was the point in doing this form of advocacy anyway? If actually what you want is to have more localized democracy so that you can bring about this change, etc., like shouldn't you be out advocating for that? Like I just don't see where this connects to anything. It's kind of isolated in this little island that just doesn't connect to any of the ideas from either a veganism point of view in terms of I don't know.
So I'm empathetic to like both of you where you both of you were coming from, and I totally agree with you. One point you made, I'm not saying this is Tim, by the way. I'm not saying this is Tim, but there definitely is a lot of people. This bubble that gets created, this not just the vegan bubble, it's a vegan activism bubble, and it tends to happen especially with like people who would consider themselves to be radical. Now, like what happens is you become completely disconnected from the real world, and your ideas that you think sound amazing and that are amazing to all the radical people around you are actually pretty fucking insane. And I say this as I've spoken about this in streams before. I've literally been there, and some of the things I'm not even going to tell you some of the things that I was saying, because now I cringe at myself. I can't believe I was saying these things, and it took a while for me to come back to a more. It's not even about being radical or not. It's about being delusional. Like I was deluding myself into thinking some of the things that I was doing were working, and some of my principles were making a difference. And then when I was really honest with myself, I realized they're not. I'm just making my life incredibly difficult and making people dislike me for nothing, because I realized these principled takes that I had, committed to made they did nothing. They did nothing. All they did was made my life more difficult and made people hate me. And then it's not like I don't care about being loved, but we're talking about my closest family and friends, like people I've grown up with, were starting to dislike me a lot, like starting to actually, hate me, because of some of these silly principles I'd started to hold, because of being in such radical spaces where I thought this was really, I thought I was great. I thought this is great. This is the right. So I understand what you said about maybe that can happen. I don't think animal rebellion is that. I don't like this milk spilling one, but like, for example, they did a good thing where they parked, I believe it was it was a vehicle, or at least I think it was some concrete. I can't remember exactly what they did, but they basically shut down a McDonald's burger processing plant. Like they blocked so that no burgers could get out, and the McDonald's all over the country, or at least parts of the country, couldn't serve people. Like it caused this massive disruption. Now, like I love that, because that's going for the biggest, most disgusting company out there. Like we can all agree McDonald's is an absolute shit tip of a company, causing so much animal abuse, so much killing. And yeah, they only shut them down for like, a day or two, but it made people ask why they're shutting them down, right? So for me, even though their intention was not to convince people, I think it probably did anyway, because people started to ask, well, why? Well, because it's, it's killing animals and it's fucking up the planet. McDonald's, we can all get behind that. Even non-vegans can say, okay, fuck McDonald's, right? So I feel like that, to me, ticked all the boxes. dumping milk in Harrods, for example, I kind of agree with what you said earlier. Why not do it in Asda or Tesco? Like, you know what I mean? It's milk is milk. I feel like,
and the reason, the reason I brought that up, David, is because like I think one suspicion that was confirmed to me is that I think that there's a kind of mushing together here of socialist kind of ideas and ideas against billionaires and against the whatever it is, the capitalist class, etc., and veganism. And I feel like this form of advocacy, because it's mushing both of those together, it doesn't kind of like recognize. But I do think that it's coming from that place. I actually think that
right, okay.
I maybe I'm wrong on this, but I almost guarantee you that every single one of the people who's doing this form of advocacy, they also believe, they're against capitalism, they're against this.
100%. Yeah. No, that's not a theory. That's true. That is true. That's animal rebellion. Like, I'm almost 100% certain that they're anti-consumerism, anti-capitalism. I don't know if they're socialists, but they're definitely.
It's essentially intersectionalism, and the problem with intersectionalism, and I've talked about this before, is that it ends up being schizophrenic. Like, it doesn't work ultimately, right? You have to kind of like stick to one ideology, because in this case, for instance, if he was saying we're doing all this stuff and it's an anti-capitalist thing, we don't, he mentioned about profit, for instance, he mentioned about only doing it at the supermarkets where rich people are going to. That is a class protest. That's nothing to do with veganism.
Right, okay.
The fact that it was mentioned, I know that he didn't dwell on it for too long, but I feel like mentioning it indicates to me that it's actually coming from that angle, but then it kind of fights against itself. It's like, well, yeah, that is, if you are anti-capitalist, as you know, I'm not, but like, if you are anti-capitalist and everything, that is what you do.
Yeah.
But if I'm looking at it through a purely vegan lens, which is how I'm looking at all vegan advocacy, then it doesn't work.
What do you think about?
I still feel like I don't.
Sorry, go on, mate.
Sorry, I just want to mention this point. I'd finished the point. I just want to also mention that maybe we should. I also feel that it's probably more fair that I discuss more at length the debate when he's there to respond, or that you give him the opportunity.
We don't need to talk about Tim. We just talk about Animal Rebellion.
Yeah,
I'm talking about Animal Rebellion right now.
Okay,
Tim's gone.
Yeah,
Tim's
I
gone.
just don't want him to think that like that after that I'm kind of.
No. We're talking about Animal Rebellion and tactics. We don't need to like the debate itself. That we can move on from that.
Yes,
but you can bring up things he said. I mean, we're talking about Animal Rebellion and disruption tactics and concepts that were discussed in the debate. But we're not criticizing Tim right now. We're just there's talking points here, right? So do you agree with the one that they did where they blocked McDonald's burger plant, like as an action of like they didn't allow them to get burgers out to all their McDonald's branches. They caused sorry. Also, I'm looking for economic disruption there. Like they lost money. McDonald's lost a ton of money. People were notified, like, oh, why can't we get McDonald's? So like they were in the news, the media. McDonald's to me is a very good target because of the size of it and the scope of the damage they do to animals and also to the planet. I mean, they are a big nasty corporation that has a history of not only animal abuse but also like there's human rights violations and there's been a lot of bad history with them. So for me, I think that's a great target, and I think that was a good action. Do you have some critique of that? What's your take on that?
Well, I could look at that from the exact same angle as what we were just discussing.
Okay.
Like if we're talking about, you've just mentioned there, it's a big company. They have human rights abuses. Okay, this stuff is true of many companies. It's not only true. We're not talking about veganism here. So I would say again, if you're going to do it to McDonald's, unless you could do that exact same thing to a small steak restaurant or whatever, a family-owned steak restaurant, unless you do the exact same thing to them, if you would only pick doing it to McDonald's over them, then I would say, well, it's confused. It's a confused form of advocacy.
Scale, though.
It's not vegan advocacy.
It's scale, though. Like the small steak restaurant is not even a 0.1% on the scale of McDonald's and what the damage they do.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about scale. I'm talking about the fundamental principle of it. Like, would let's say that you weren't doing it to that. Let's say someone else like was doing it decided to do that to a small steak restaurant. Would you think that it's still okay? If you only think it's okay for McDonald's, right? If you think that only McDonald's should be, should have this stuff, then I think that's confused.
Right. I understand. So we're looking at this is where you think you and Tim were getting your wires crossed here, and I think I've just nailed it down. So we're talking single issue campaigning versus vegan ethics, animal rights ethics campaigning. Like, so ethically, absolutely, you know, the small steak restaurant or the McDonald's doesn't matter. The ethics are the ethics. That's what we're trying to get out there, right? That's where you're maybe coming from. But where I would say that where I would have a problem with that, or not a problem, but where I would suggest a different way is that it's the outcome of this, right? So are you how much can you change by going after a small steak restaurant? Okay, yeah, you're going to get the ethics out there, but they were hurting animals for sure, but not even close to the scale McDonald's hurts animals. So you got to decide, okay, where's my time best spent, at the steak restaurant or
that's
McDonald's?
Fair. That's fair.
Right?
Yeah, I see your point. Yeah, that's fair. You could say that, but what I'm saying is, take aside the actual action, like the actual thing of doing it, and just look at the philosophy behind it. Right. Like so take away. Let's say that you're not going to do any of it. Would it be justified if you're not going to do it to anything? Would it be justified to do it at state restaurant as well as?
Yeah,
even if
it would be. Yeah,
your
100%.
time is best spent doing it to McDonald's.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
Right?
It would be. Yeah.
Yeah. So you agree that it would be? Is that your
100%.
opinion?
Yeah, of course it would. I wouldn't do it because of the optics, and I wouldn't do it because of it would be.
Yes. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Let's get into that, because I think that's a good word you've just used there. It's the optics, and the optics can work against your fundamental aim. So you might have had the impact of saying, okay, well, we've just raised the price of burgers for everyone because we've done all this damage and it's cost them economically, and now they have to spend more on their burgers or whatever it is, right? That might be true, but if the optics suck and you're actually damaging the reputation of veganism generally, then it doesn't really matter if you've done that economic damage, because you've also damaged the movement generally. And the problem with veganism, I always find, and I'm interested to know if you found the same thing, it is an optics thing. Most people, the reason they're not vegan is optics. It's kind of like a mixture between maybe convenience and optics. It's not because people have sat down and really thought through their philosophy about whether it's justified in killing animals.
People don't think,
because they just look at a movement.
Yeah. Most people don't think about any choices they make. They just do it.
Yeah.
It's only.
And that's the thing. So I think that optics is the thing we have to protect almost above everything else. Okay. Like I think that's so important for bringing in new vegans, like bringing in people who are actually going to not buy this product and really reducing that demand side of the equation. And that's why, like I said, all of my efforts, and I think that most people's efforts should be on the demand side, not on the supply side. People are demanding these products, right? People are at McDonald's there waiting for their burger, right? You going and saying, no, we're going to stop you. Well, it's like, then all you're going to do is get into the situation, which I think came out in the debate, where you've got a small percentage of people, like whatever it is in the UK, 1% of people. Are you going to be able to take on the might of everyone else in the country to try to? You're never going to be able to have that much. But what you can do is you can talk to your friend. If I go and sit at a table and I talk to a friend or a family member one-on-one, I can potentially have that person go vegan. There's no power struggle there. It's not like I'm.
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to cut us off early. What's it called? Yeah, I'm gonna have to cut off this stream early because my phone is about to die and it's also about to burn to a crisp. So go watch the rest of the live stream on David Rams's live stream. And yeah, much love to everyone. Peace out.